to 6, a helping hand with your land.
Neil from Messick's here, out to show you an attachment that you might want to consider for the front of your loader. This is a 4-in-1 bucket, jack of all trades, expert of none. Going to walk you around a little bit today, show you some of the varied things that you can do with this bucket on the front of your machine. Now, what makes a 4-in-1 bucket unique are these 4 different functions that you can do with this one implement. You can see here that I have the jaw swung open on the front of the bucket. It hinges right down here at the bottom in what would be called the floor of the bucket. 2 hydraulic cylinders back here on the rear of it allow this thing to kick and to hinge open. And this is where your 4 different functions come in. So your first is as a regular dirt bucket. This bucket can go in its closed position and scoop up a pile of dirt just like any other bucket. By opening up this hinge though, you open up some additional functions. So with this hinge swung the whole way up, you're left with a flat blade here on the front, effectively a straight pushing blade with a cutting edge down here on the bottom. You can also use the jaws in order to pinch logs. The serrated teeth here on the inside can function a little bit like a grapple, allowing you to grab things and move them around. And this rear cutting edge here on the back of the lid then can also function as a box blade. By taking this thing and swinging it open and cutting with that rear edge right there, it allows you to cut that dirt off and accumulate some of it in the bucket and spread it out, much like a box blade does. So we're going to take a couple of minutes here and show you a little bit of how each one of these functions work and how in some ways each one of them is a little bit compromised. So in terms of its basic function as a bucket, a 4-in-1 is a very functional bucket, right? The construction of these things is extremely heavy duty because of their varied uses, much more heavy duty than what your traditional material buckets are going to be, or even a dirt skid steer bucket for that matter. If you look at the amount of steel and stuff in these things and all the cutting edges, they're extremely heavy built. But that heavy build does come with a bit of a cost. Because of the weight of this bucket, your loader is able to then lift less material inside of it, so that you're going to find the capacities of 4-in-1s generally trending on the smaller side compared to a traditional bucket. So while your average 72-inch skid steer bucket may come in around 400 pounds and change, you're going to find these things tipping the scales at around 1,000 pounds or so, giving you 600 pounds of less capacity, and that ends up being fairly significant. So definitely functional, very, very heavy duty, but there is a trade-off there in terms of capacity by using a 4-in-1 over traditional dirt bucket. Our next 4-in-1 function, I'm going to take this bucket load of dirt down here to this washout that's in this road. This dirt is super compacted, it's really, really hard, and every time the rain comes down here, it keeps on working this little trench out through here, which is a pain as we're driving back and forth. So my next function of this bucket, I'm going to use it as a bucket to carry my soil down here from the dirt pile and then swing it open and back drag with it like a box scraper in order to help smooth that out. So I'm going to drive down here to the pile. You can hear this tractor has auto throttle on it, part of that HST Plus series of features that you get on the L series Kubotas. I like it for this kind of stuff. So we'll dump our load here, and then we're going to simply, normally, you know, you just back drag typically, but we're going to take our third function here now and swing this thing open. The one detriment here might be I'm a little blind here from the seat of the exact angles of this stuff, and I am not a pro with one of these things. So we can set up our bucket and then drag backwards, and between smoothing the dirt out and collecting the excess, that's a piece of cake. I get a very nice, easy finish there. Now let's go down here a little bit further to where I don't have loose soil to help me out and actually see if we can cut here a little bit with the blade. So we're gonna swing this up the whole way and use our front blade there in order to try to cut some of the soil off here and loosen this up. trying to feather this up and down a little bit to keep it just off the top of the ground here so I can skim and not dig quite so much. Now another function here that this bucket can do that's generally not included in the 4-in-1 combination bucket is the fact that it can spread through the joint in the bottom of the bucket. Now that's not something that is unique, right? Like obviously you could take any bucket and by tipping it forward and backing up, spread a little bit, but there is a certain loss of control that you get there when the floor of the bucket goes over. You know, many times your material just very quickly spills out of the bucket. But with our 4-in-1 here, because we can crack open the inside here and then slowly back up and jostle the bucket, if you have a thin, silty material, you could very easily let it spread out like that. Good for things like sand or mulch or that kind of stuff. I've got a lumpy pile of dirt here that I'm playing around with. But this gives you another option for this controlled way to distribute material. That is something you can't do with a traditional loader bucket. So the last function for our 4-in-1 here is as a grapple, and you can see there in the jaw you have that serration that allows us to drive up into things, close it, and pinch things in the jaw. So I have a bunch of limbs and stuff that fell here in front of me. We're going to drive in here and see if we can pick one up. So simply come up over the top of it there and pinch it in the bucket. And backing up and hold it. Now, you can pretty clearly see there, this thing can do this, right? You can get a limb in there, you can grab it, you can pinch it, you can move it. But if you compare the function of this to a traditional grapple, right, the style that I tend to prefer is the one with a traditional floor with a lid that comes over the top. You can grab much more material using a traditional grapple than you ever will with a 4-in-1, but you can see how that easy is to do, right? Open a thing up, drive up into your pile, shut the thing and pinch stuff, and away you go. So that's a short demonstration on the different functions that you can do with a 4-in-1 bucket. You can see here that this thing is a compromise when it comes to that grapple function, but its ability to be able to do a variety of work while having one single implement on the front of your tractor is very cool. It's quite functional as a blade and a box blade, and obviously it can move dirt. It can do a lot of things. Now, there's compromises in every one of these things, right? That pushing blade doesn't angle like a lot of front blades will, or that box blade doesn't have scare fires on it in order to be able to rip as it goes, and the grapple can't grab nearly the same amount of material. However, with all of those compromises aside, this is one implement that you can put on the front of your tractor and do all of these things, right? So this tends to be an implement that's not very popular on the front of small tractors. It usually tends to be on construction equipment. You'll see them a lot on big industrial tractor loader backhoes, often run by road crews and municipal departments, because in those kinds of scenarios, you can throw this thing on a truck, take it just about anywhere, do a huge variety of jobs without having a second implement full, or second trailer full of implements running around behind you, right? It is a one attachment that can just do all of these things, and it's very, very cool for that reason. So if you're shopping for an implement like this and we can help, or if you have parts or service needs for a machine you've already got, give us a call at Messick's. We're available at 800-222-3373 or online at messick's.com.